Welcome back everyone to Formula 1 2021 and to your weekend review for the British Grand Prix. Now, as many of you know, this weekend I headed to Silverstone for my first race for 2 years. It was great. It was bonkers, an awesome weekend of racing, of attending a Grand Prix. And crikey, are there plenty of talking points to get through, but as you can also probably tell, my voice isn't too great after a weekend of shouting and screaming from the Vale Grandstand. We saw plenty of action in Formula 1, Formula 2, W Series and everything in between, but Formula 1 is obviously the main talking point, and with a brand new format, 3 days of pure action, there's lots to get through. And so for today's review, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. So in a moment's time, we're going to go through your race results and championship standings before heading over to a quick discussion about sprint qualifying. Many of you know I wasn't a huge supporter of the new format heading into this weekend, and then a real discussion about all your teams and drivers from the British Grand Prix. Sound good? Well, strap in for the next 10 to 20 minutes or so of Formula 1 action. If you are new, feel free to subscribe. Fingers crossed my voice is able to hold on for the next 20 minutes or so, but we'll start off with your results from this weekend's British Grand Prix. And for the 8th time in his Formula 1 career, a continuing record-breaking career, Lewis Hamilton was victorious, overtaking Ferrari Charles Leclerc with just 2 laps to go. Bottas was 3rd, but heartbreak for Lando Norris in the pit stops saw the British driver 4th instead of claiming his first home podium. 5th for Daniel Ricciardo saw the Aussie driver score one of his best results of the season so far, fending off Carlos Sainz for the majority of the Grand Prix. A double point score for Alpine saw Alonso in 7th, Ocon in 9th, Lance Stroll splitting the two of them, and with his teammate getting a punctuate on, Yuki Tsunoda stole the final point in P10. As I just mentioned, Pierre Gasly with that puncher just missed out on the top 10, finishing P11 in front of George Russell. A crazy weekend for the British driver. We will definitely talk about him a little bit later on. Giovinazzi was 13th in front of Latifi. Raikkonen, who made contact with Perez with only a few laps to go. Checo 16th, a dismal weekend, but the lead of the 2 Red Bulls, Nikita Mazepin was 17th, and actually from the Vale Grandstand where we were sat, have I got a story to tell you guys a little bit later on about Nikita Mazepin. Schumacher was 18th, and Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen both failed to finish. Your championship standings then after this weekend sees Lewis Hamilton close in on Verstappen, but it is still Max who leads the way on 185 points. Norris jumps Bottas and Perez to move up to 3rd. Bottas jumps Perez to move up to 4th, and Checo with that non-score slips down to P5. A 2nd place for Charles Leclerc. His first podium of the season leaves him in 6th place with teammate Sainz in P7. Good points for Ricciardo seems to solidify P8, 9th for Gasly, and Sebastian Vettel rounds out your top 10. It's the 2 Alpine cars and Lance Stroll who are just chasing that top 10. Alonso is the lead of the 3. Stroll is on 18 points for car number 18, and Ocon on 14. Tsunoda is on 10. Raikkonen and Giovinazzi on 1. Russell, Schumacher, Mazepin and Nicholas Latifi all yet to score. It's a similar story for Williams and Haas, with both of their drivers on no points. Alfa Romeo have 2. It's then that fight for 5th place, so tight between AlphaTauri and Aston Martin. Alpine a little bit further back on 40 points. It's a great battle for 3rd, with McLaren just in front of Ferrari, and your championship fight, crikey, 4 points between the 2 of them. No points for Red Bull over the course of this weekend. But the big story, well, one of the many big stories coming out of this race weekend, before we jump into our Max Verstappen Lewis Hamilton conversation that I'm sure you're all desperate to hear about. First, we got to talk about sprint qualifying. The brand new format for this weekend saw normal qualifying on Friday, a brand new sprint qualifying on Saturday, a half an hour mini Grand Prix to determine our grid for Sunday's British Grand Prix, and of course your bog standard normal race on Sunday. Quali was great. Normal quali on Friday, awesome. Having it in the evening, the normal setup, loved it. The race itself, perfect, with a little red flag, a big talking point to start off the race, and overtakes during the Grand Prix, happy days. But sprint qualifying itself, how do we feel about that? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'll be down there in a moment's time myself because I'm really conflicted about sprint qualifying. Did it spice up the racing on Sunday as a result of having an extra race on Saturday? Not really. Yes, Sergio Perez had that huge spin, didn't he? Coming out of Maggots and Beckett's and going through Chapel, and ultimately that made his race on Sunday a whole lot more complicated, and I guess gave us that storyline of Checo trying to fight his way through the field. Ultimately that didn't happen, moving on to a two-stop strategy. But apart from a couple of fighting in the early stages of the race, we saw Verstappen and Hamilton on that opening lap. Fantastic. We saw Alonso doing classic Alonso things. A great start from the two-time world champion, up to 5th place, and then spent the rest of the half an hour fending off the two McLarens and a host of other cars in that midfield group. But my honest feeling coming away from sprint qualifying was I feel it was kind of a little bit pointless. Maybe it's just me, because I've definitely seen a mixed reception online. I just don't think it gave us anything extra over the course of the weekend. Being at the Grand Prix itself, attending the race, yes, it was fantastic to have action on each of the 3 days. And that's the main talking point for Formula 1, is to bring more eyes over the weekend to make it better value for money for attending the Grand Prix. And on a YouTube side of things, I'm sure you're all very aware of YouTube if you're watching this video, for Formula 1, that's an extra 3.5 million views as of the time of recording, a figure they definitely wouldn't have got on FP3 highlights. So, from that side of things, I totally get it. I want to know what you guys think if you were watching from home this weekend, which I'm sure many of you are, if you weren't in the UK, and even if you are in the UK, because we all know Formula 1 Grand Prix are so ridiculously expensive to go to, and sprint qualifying doesn't resolve that issue, even if it does become better value for money. But on the other side of the coin, for those people at home that don't have the luxury of time over a weekend on a Friday evening, do they want to miss the action? Do they want to give up their whole weekend to watch Formula 1? Is that going to then ruin their enjoyment if they've missed a big storyline on Friday, a big storyline on Saturday? And for new fans coming into the sport who are already put off by that 2-hour race, now they've got to watch another race on Saturday. And if they really want to watch qualifying as well, I just feel it's a bit of a barrier to entry for certain fans. I'm not sold on it. Some people absolutely love it, and I can understand more Formula 1 action, more Formula 1 content, more importantly, more storylines to sink our teeth into. It's not for me just yet. Let's try it a few more times. I think Monza is going to be really fun. We love Monza qualifying. That's going to stay. Throw another one into the mix. That should be awesome. How is this going to work at tracks like France, at tracks like Abu Dhabi? I don't think it would. So I think Ross Brawn's comments on making sure that our special events, so your Monzas, your Silverstones, he's probably talking about Belgium in that kind of mix as well. Picking 4 or 5 over a season to try it, that could work. But again, without going too much into the business side of things, something I might do, probably will do actually in a separate video, is talk about the business implications of it. How does then the price structure change for those weekends compared to going to a normal race, say Hungary or something like that? So as of right now, I'm not sold. Some people love it. If you are one of those people, let me know in the comments down below. I'm really interested to see how this felt from home. I've not had a chance to watch it all the way through since I got back from Silverstone very late last night. But again, let me know your thoughts, and I really want to have a bit of a discussion because I'm definitely mixed after my viewing from the circuit itself. But the race, we've got to talk. We've got to talk about the race. 10 minutes in, 10 minutes to go. How much can we squeeze in? My voice is dying, but let's crack on with our main event. The big talking points, maybe, of the season so far, and which way am I going to go? I'm going to tease you. Of course, you know me. I'm going to tease you. I'm going to dangle that carrot. Is it Hamilton's fault? Verstappen's fault? Both of them fighting on lap 1. Hamilton had a great start down the inside. Both of them wheel to wheel. Verstappen just gets the edge through turns 1 and 2. Hamilton then gets a great exit down the Wellington straight. Verstappen weaving. Fair, but definitely weaving. Hamilton doesn't get past. Again, Verstappen holds the lead. We then go again through left field. Now charging towards Copse. Hamilton has the slipstream. Goes to the inside. Verstappen just about leaves him enough room. Both of them go through the corner. And there's contact. Boy, is there big contact. Whose fault is this one? I think it's a racing incident. I really do believe this is a racing incident. And I'm going out on a limb here because I know Hamilton and Verstappen fans won't be very happy with that one. So I'm kind of going to get a double whammy. But I don't really care because that's how I truly feel. Having watched it at the circuit, which in complete fairness is very difficult when you're trying to watch a screen many, many metres away. Having then watched it again once I got home. Yes, late last night, I was a little bit tired, but also in the morning as well. Something I see is Lewis Hamilton go down the inside, initially is alongside. Verstappen outbrakes Hamilton, or Hamilton lifts off that little bit earlier, so Verstappen again gets ahead. Hamilton doesn't stick on the inside of the corner because in his head he's thinking Verstappen's got plenty of circuit on the left on his outside, he's going to give me room. From Verstappen's point of view, flip it around, Verstappen's now in front heading into the corner. Hamilton's still got a bit of room to the apex, so Verstappen's thinking Hamilton's going to give me room. Both of them aren't willing to give each other that bit of room, and as a result, contact is made. One thing you've also got to remember, which is something I don't particularly like, if you want to apply it to this, you can, I don't think it really matters, is that the stewards should not, and this goes for you guys as well, if you're completely in one camp or another, you should not base your decision on the outcome of an incident. So, in theory, the FIA, how they should be working, and the driver stewards, by the letter of the law, which they don't always follow, the fact Verstappen retired and Hamilton continued, by the letter of the law, shouldn't come into the equation. I think that's outdated. I think that should change because Verstappen's race was over. Hamilton was able to continue. And so from that point of view, I really understand where the penalty has come from. The incident itself, I think, is the perfect example of a racing incident. Two guys wanting to get the overtake done, knowing that whoever's going to be in the lead at that stage of the race most likely is going to go on to win, or at least have a better chance of winning. Throw in a championship fight for good measure as well, there's always going to be contact. It needed one of them to give a bit of room. Neither of them were willing to do so. Both had extra room they could have gone into. Hamilton could have tucked in a bit more. Verstappen could have gone out a bit wide. A perfect example is when Hamilton overtook Leclerc a little bit later on. Yes, Leclerc went wide. However, Hamilton also hugged the apex a little bit more. Of course, the two incidents were different. Later on in the race, fuel load's less, so you're more likely to go completely flat through Copse. However, for the sake of my argument, there was room for two cars through that corner. But Hamilton and Verstappen, with the pressure that was on the line, with the fact they had been battling very hard for that opening lap, they even made contact twice down towards Brooklands and down the Wellington straight, just slight bashes of tyres, both of them weren't willing to give up the place. And so as a result, to me, that's a racing incident. It's a spicy one. Boy, is it a spicy one, and Max Verstappen, a 51G impact. That is massive. Through a corner that is practically flat out. Max was very lucky to walk away from that one. Practically uninjured as well. Grosjean's crash, just for reference, in Bahrain, with that horrendous fire and horrendous scenes. That was 67. And 51, 52 isn't all that far off. Thankful, very thankful, Max was okay and we can continue this epic championship fight. But nevertheless, it's a huge talking point, the biggest talking point of the weekend, and as such, it's going to happen either way. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. But the race itself after that incident was dominated by Charles Leclerc. Yep, you heard me. If you haven't seen the race, yes, Charles Leclerc led all but two Off the laps in yesterday's Grand Prix, and in a midfield car, what an incredible drive from the Monegasque driver who was on it all weekend. Qualifying 4th in the sprint race was my driver of the day. Kept up with Valtteri Bottas, was comfortably in front of the two McLarens, in front of his teammate all weekend long. But heartbreak. 2 laps to go, Hamilton served his 10-second penalty, and for Charles, his Ferrari didn't quite have enough to hold on. A great drive, one of the drives of the season, in my opinion. And even if Verstappen had stayed in the race, Hamilton hadn't got his penalty and was also in the race, Leclerc would have been 3rd today, comfortably in front of Bottas. Obviously, Perez had made his own mistakes early on. A great drive. I really did feel for him being in that grandstand. I was so conflicted because I wanted that storyline for Leclerc, but being at the British Grand Prix, everyone was cheering for Hamilton. A mix of emotions, but nevertheless, Leclerc so unlucky. A mega drive, and again proving he is one of the best in Formula 1. His first podium of the season as well. Well and truly deserving for our 2-time pole sitter in 2021. Norris and Bottas were kind of in a world of their own, and it was Norris for most of the race who was 3rd, but a horrendous pit stop, a 6-second pit stop, got him out behind Alonso, something they didn't need. It also got him just out behind Bottas, and Bottas was able to settle into a rhythm and secure another podium, some big points for the Mercedes team. Valtteri also moved out the way for Hamilton, which of course made a big difference to him winning the race. But for Norris, it's more points, the highest or longest scoring streak for any McLaren driver in history. That's a great record for him to have on his CV. And for Daniel Ricciardo, who finished 5th, 1 place behind Lando, that's a really strong weekend for him. A really good bounce back. Was nice and racy with Bottas, with Norris in those opening laps, and Alonso as well over the course of the weekend. Was so close in quali, pretty much kept the pace with him in the sprint and in the race itself, if not for getting traffic in the way. Had to defend quite hard from Carlos Sainz, who came home in P6. Some really strong defending though, held on to that 5th place, and one of his best drives and McLaren's best scoring days of the season so far. Sainz in 6th actually is a really good recovery. Got bumped off by George Russell in sprint qualifying, but even still managed to fight his way back through the field. In the race did the exact same almost, did what I love so far this season. We'll call it the Racing Review special. Overcut strategy, went so long, at one stage was in the podium places before coming in to do his pit stop. More points, a really good day for the Ferrari team. We then had the 2 Alpines and Lance Stroll, who all day long were in their own little bubble. All 3 of them, there's not really a lot to say. Alonso, who had that great start in sprint quali, fell backwards and in the race kind of just controlled his own pace in front of Stroll and in front of Ocon. Stroll, one of his best results of the season, I feel, with that 8th place. It's not a flashy point score, but it's a consistent one. Holding on with those 2 Alpine cars, not letting Ocon by and hounding Alonso for most of the race. That's a good job. Also had a bit of an incident with a helicopter being too low, and if you can find the onboard for that, I believe it's in the best radio video that Formula 1 put up. Quite scary. I wonder if there'll be an investigation into that one, because Stroll definitely got a bit of repercussions from the wind coming off the helicopter just above him. But apart from that, a strong day for all 3 of them. For Sebastian Vettel, a Spinella. A Spinella for Seb. You feel for him because the sprint race went really well. He was kind of following those 2 McLarens. Couldn't quite get past Alonso, but had a great start for the race. Was fighting Alonso at the start of the race on the restart, but had that spin coming out of Luffield and couldn't really recover at the end of the race. It's a single point for Yuki Tsunoda after his teammate Pierre Gasly got a puncture late on. It was a difficult weekend anyway from the team, and both of them were on the fringes of points. Tsunoda actually was a little bit further back until the carnage kicked off late on with Gasly. Gasly will be disappointed, but AlphaTauri never really had the pace for this weekend. Russell is 12th. Crikey, was that scream of the crowd when he got into Q3 and then secure 8th place. Brilliant. But he had that contact with Sainz, a lock-up down into Brooklands, contact with the Ferrari man, a 3-place penalty, and that Williams is not good at starting Grand Prix, fell back during the race. Like Tsunoda, was able to gain a couple of positions later on with Perez and Raikkonen making contact. Perez not giving Kimi enough room through the final corner, managed to witness that one live. That was pretty cool. No footage to show, I'm afraid, but it was cool nevertheless seeing those two. But Perez had a bit of a mare, didn't he? A really tricky one for Checo. Had that huge incident out of Chapel in sprint quali in the race, contact with Raikkonen, and then commentary mentioned that Perez came in for the fastest lap. However, at the race itself, Perez started on the hards and came in really early onto the mediums, and I suspect the reason he came in was to do a 2-stop, because there was no way how early he came into the pits. Though Perez is good at looking after his tyres, he was never going to do the full race distance on the mediums. That's why he went onto the soft, not because of fastest lap. He got it, would have wanted it anyway, but still just wanted to clear that up for a few people, because I don't think commentary got that one quite right. And finally, the 2 Haas cars. I told you I had a story, and boy do I have a story. Nikita Mazepin has had a terrible season, an awful start to the season, and Schumacher has been the better of the two. But Mazepin didn't have to make an incredible move around the outside of Schumacher. Both of them came side by side up to Stowe, right at the top of the hill. Came side by side back down. Schumacher tried to outbrake Mazepin down the inside, but Mazepin sailed around the outside of Schumacher. Then through the final corner went side by side. Mazepin just had the edge and got through. Credit where credit's due, but TV didn't show it. I can't believe it. It was a great move. I was surprised. I'm sure you're surprised even hearing about it. I really hope Formula 1 show it over the next few days on replays or highlights or whatever. It's not been shown. It needs to be shown, even though we all hate Nikita Mazepin for very obvious reasons. But credit where credit's due, because from a racing point of view, that was a cracking overtake. And that's the reason he got in front of Schumacher. They didn't really show that on TV. Before we go then, I've already done the driver's standings. My race rating, I need help with this one, because being there, I'm going to be biased with a fight down to the wire with that huge talking point at the start of the day. And of course, with sprint quali and qualifying, 8 out of 10 for me. Is that a bit high? Possibly. So I want to know your thoughts in the comments down below. And my driver of the day, qualifying, I'll give it to Russell. But in sprint qualifying and in the race, Charles Leclerc, a mega drive from a midfield car, fighting for the podium positions, leading most of the Grand Prix. Almost faultless, if not faultless, from the Ferrari man this weekend. That was my voice going. I can tell you now, there's been a lot of takes I've had to take out of this one because it is killing me. But it was a great weekend. Thank you to all of you that I met up with, a few fans, a few YouTubers as well. It was awesome. I always recommend going to races if you love Formula 1. Thank you for all being super patient with the channel over the past month or so. Going to Silverstone has really given me the kick up the bum to crack on with things, and that is what we will be doing over the next few weeks, heading to Hungary next time out over the summer break. I can't wait. I really can't wait to show you guys what I've got in store. But for now, that's it from me. Silverstone is complete. I will see you in the fire pit. That is the comments section in a moment's time. If you are new, feel free to subscribe. Sorry the voice is dead. Can't really help that one, I'm afraid. But thank you all very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the race this weekend. And I'll see you all in the next one.